Hello and welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the view from the opposition, and this week it comes from Dave Dymond from the Blue Monday podcast. You might remember Dave popped onto the show for the reverse fixture in which Newcastle won comfortably down at Portman Road. Dave, welcome back. How are you? Keeping you well?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, despite everything, Andrew, I'm okay, thank you. Trust you all the same. Well, you're having a lovely old season, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. A cup winning, fingers crossed, qualification to the Champions League, despite Dave Ipswich's inevitable departure from the top flight. Have you had a good time of it?
Yeah, look, I think so. Yeah, overall, I think we have. It's just been tough. It's just been so tough, and especially after. I know it's obviously different levels. We spoke about this before Christmas, didn't we? The levels of success we had in the past 2 seasons. Going straight through from League One straight through the Championship up to the Premier League. Brilliant, but we were for those 2 seasons, we lost 2 games at home for those 2 seasons, in those 2 seasons. And so far this season, we've won 1 game, Chelsea. I mean, it's just bizarre. We've got 14 points away from home and 7 points at home. So, if you look at it context over the season, probably 14 points from how many games? 17, 18 games, maybe. Not too bad, perhaps. And if you can pick up, say, 20 points at home, then even now we'll still be in touch. But yeah, it's I mean, sure, look, I've enjoyed seeing the players at Arsenal. We're here on Sunday, and it's well pleasure to watch them. I think our players watch them most of the time, but Odegaard and Rice and Saka. I have to say though, we said on the podcast on Sunday, and I'm not just saying this, but probably the most impressive side, honestly, I've seen was Newcastle, because I don't think we expected it from Newcastle on the day. We lost 6-0 to Man City. I mean, look, you can get that. They clicked. I mean, Arsenal, it was a joke, and obviously a sending off on the half hour, but probably after that they went easy on us, to be fair. But we all said that the Newcastle game before Christmas was a real eye opener. I mean, you were so good that day. The two in midfield. Don't think Joe Linton even played that day. It was Gamares and Tonali in midfield, which is just outstanding. So look, there's been games like that, and look, as a football fan, of course, I've enjoyed seeing these players come to Portman Road, but mate, it's been brutal. It just has. It's just unrelenting. It is so. Every little mistake, gets. And we've made some howlers, but every little mistake, gets punished. You don't take your chances, you get punished. And yeah, for us to have stayed up this season, even more than last season in the Championship, where pretty much everything fell into place, including Leeds blowing up in the last month or so. Everything would have had to have gone right for us this season, and we've been nowhere near it. Just hasn't. From I know we're not bleating about it. VAR decisions, look, which can go either way. We know that, but to injuries and stuff like that, I think someone said on the podcast the other night, a third of our squad have missed at least 10 games this season. You just can't deal with that, really.
You mentioned there the away form compared to your home form, and
Mm,
it's funny in many ways.
it's
Bearing in mind that your relegation from the Premier League could be confirmed this Saturday if you lose to Newcastle United. Um, does that away form give you any hope that your stay in the Premier League might be prolonged a little bit and you might upset the odds on Saturday?
well, at Newcastle.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, having witnessed their last home game, I watched it. I wish I hadn't actually. Where you absolutely blew Palace apart. You had a little blip the weekend at Villa. That was an odd. Didn't see that coming. Perhaps you didn't. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we're holding out a lot of hope, to be fair. I really don't. Although I was at Chelsea the other week and we played again. We were 2-0 up at half time. I think we've lost 28 points from winning positions this season. I look, yeah, it's just been so tough. So really, the answer to your question is no. I think hand on heart, the most ardent Ipswich fan is not expecting much from Saturday. I don't think.
Given that it's all but done, you guys going back down to the Championship. What is the message then in the dressing room on Saturday? Like, how does the manager get the players up for this game?
Honestly, I just think It's a tough one, isn't it? Just basically, continue to work hard, which we have. We put in some good performances away. It's an odd one. Would I say we're playing a great deal? Perhaps we are playing a little bit more with a low block away from home. But I mean, Chelsea was a case in point, and perhaps what they would say, this is what would prior to the game, keep it tight. So we're 2-0 up at half time against Chelsea, and the classic, you go in, their fans are getting very frustrated. You keep it tight for 10, 15 minutes, really get the fans turning. I think within 30 seconds, it was 2-1. So, yeah, and we'll go to Newcastle. It's the old cliche, you've got to keep it tight as a unit. And you're playing for the shirt. You are still playing for the shirt and playing for pride, really. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think it's any coincidence that in all likelihood, well, it will happen now. Probably, I can't see otherwise. That the three promoted sides that came up, who are going down, Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton, um, will be proven to be not just promoted sides, will be the worst bottom three in Premier League history.
Yeah, and I mean it's sad to see in many ways because I always like it when the promoted sides come up and stay up and surprise everyone, but it's just not happened this season, and it looks like that might be the way going forward as well. It is very sad to see from a
It
genuine
is.
football perspective,
It
isn't it?
is really, and I'm not sure how you crack it. Look, it's well documented what happened at Forest. All right, they went for it. They took the penalty on the chin, and look where they are now. As a neutral, I'd love them to get into. It might be although it might be at the expense of Newcastle, but as a neutral, I'd love Forest to do it. They've kind of broken through the ceiling, but it's so difficult. I mean, looking at it, from any promoted side, that first season you've got to stay up by hook or by crook, probably, and have what at least 2 or 3 seasons at it, and have like what's that, 6 transfer windows. I think that's the secret. It really is, but it's just getting further and further away. And look, no disrespect to who's coming up, even Leeds. Look, we know have got the support, the crowd, and everything. This is just going to be a struggle. I just can't see it. I don't think Leeds actually are as strong this season as they were this time last season, to be fair. I know they're not. But look, obviously they'll recruit and stuff, but it's going to be so difficult. It's just getting further and further away, and particularly this season, because when you think that, all right, say a month back, we were still in touch with Wolves. Then Wolves came to Portman Road, and again they again they beat us. Um, and it's now West Ham who are now West Ham are now 17th, and it's probably they're going to end up with 38, 39, 40 points. It's miles away.
Yeah, the gap's certainly widening. You mentioned there briefly Newcastle getting thumped by Aston Villa at Villa
Mm,
Park. Are you slightly fearing a wounded animal with a point to prove?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially after last night's result. I mean, last night's result, that last minute winner didn't do you any favours, I guess, did it? A draw would have been absolutely perfect for you guys last night, wouldn't it? But obviously, with Man City nicking that last minute winner, not saying, Saturday was always going to be a big game because you are pushing for the Champions League football. It's obviously what you want. But yeah, I think that puts even more onus on Saturday's game for you to come out all, not that you wouldn't anyway, come out all guns blazing. But look, it's for the first time Sunday against Arsenal. I think, we all saw what Arsenal did. Brilliant last week, last 10 days. Madrid, the 2 results against Madrid, absolutely brilliant, superb in the Bernabeu. And you think, oh, perhaps they'll rest a few players. And when I saw the team sheet come out, you just knew it, and it was right from the kickoff, just total dominance.
I guess when you look at Newcastle's starting 11, it's very good, but one thing they don't have is the ability to change it because they haven't got that depth. You've only really got Anthony Gordon on the bench, who you would consider a real
Mm.
game changer or someone who could start from the first whistle. Are you hoping that the tiredness and the lack of energy that we saw against Aston Villa might still be lingering on
I think
Saturday?
we're
Or you just kind of writing this one off for straight away?
honestly, look, of course you do. You always, it's our team, isn't it? You always look for positives, and no, there's always a chance, but I just can't see it. I mean, you've been so good this year, and I've got to say that midfield, and before the Christmas game, the home game, just absolutely overran us that day. I know Joe Linton wasn't even there, just absolutely overran us. And I'd say they're the best two I've seen, other than obviously Odegaard and Rice, different circumstances, perhaps. But I would say those two that day were the best two central midfielders I've seen at Portman Road this season, probably. Wolves were good. Wolves were good the other week. They had obviously João Gomez and Andre, and then you get your head around that and you think, oh, okay, they were the two central midfielders that started for Brazil the month before. It's yeah, it is, Andrew. I know I keep saying it, but the levels are it's so far apart. It's especially when you come up against these. Well, Wolves aren't a top six side, but especially the top six sides.
Well, we haven't even mentioned the man who scored a hat-trick that day against Ipswich Town at Portman Road, Mr. Alexander Isak. What are your thoughts
Oh,
about him?
he's fantastic, isn't he? I mean, look, here's a thought about Isak because obviously, I don't know what his contract situation is. Presumably, he's tied to Newcastle for a couple more seasons, but obviously we've got Liam Delap. Liam Delap's been a success story for us this season. By no means is he the finished article, but he would be the sort of player that when he does go, he would be absolutely loved at Newcastle. He is the sort of player because he's big. He's like that's not the old fashioned. Isak's slightly different. I think he's got a bit more to his game. I'm not saying, you know, Up has. But when I think of the old-fashioned sort of Newcastle centre forward, like heroes, and days gone by, a bit like I don't know, say McDonald, Mickey Quinn, someone like big, robust centre forwards that boss the centre halves about and get in amongst them. He would be, I think, he'd be loved in Newcastle. He would, but yeah, we'll see. He's going to go. Is this well documented release clause that someone will come in with 30 million? I think it's a bit of a snip, but look, we've talked through this on our chat group and the podcast, and if it was the only way we could have signed him last season for Man City, well, that's the only, and he might not have come off. But yeah, again, sorry, getting back to your question, yeah, he's absolutely fantastic. But I'll tell you who's impressed me is Murphy. I mean, what a season he's had. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's
Unbelievable.
been fantastic. Really, really good. Surprised a lot of people, especially given that right wing's been his own. He's got no competition there, so that can work
Unbelievable.
in a negative factor, can't it? Because you've not got anyone there
Yeah.
on your
Yeah.
on your tail chasing you. But he's been superb. A real
And I
breath
guess
of fresh air.
such an unsung player, perhaps prior to this season, he must be up there in the running for player of the season, I would have thought. He's
Oh,
been that
without
good,
without a
hasn't
shadow
he?
of a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to make the summer transfer window really interesting as well because Newcastle, I still think, will go out and sign someone on that side, and it's just about who it is. If it's Brian and Burmo, I'll be backing Jacob Murphy to compete with him. I mean, that would be some option on the right, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he's been fantastic. He's been fantastic as well. And this is what we haven't had this year. We lost Bene at the end of October with, I think, a ruptured Achilles. We lost him at Brentford, right side pace, out and out pace merchant. And Wes Burns, who's come right through from League One, it was just starting to show. I think struggled at first to really get up to pace, get up to speed with the Premier League. Just starting to show. Played really well in the Chelsea game, which we won, which was December the 30th. 2 weeks later, plays at Liverpool and does his cruciate ligament. He's out. So it's just, yeah, it's been kind of one thing after the other. And the other big thing, really, and probably we spoke about this prior to Christmas, is the what shouldn't have been a gamble, but Kevin Phillips just hasn't happened. Just hasn't worked. I don't quite think he was fully up to speed, fully fit when he first came here. So struggled at first. Then he was properly getting up to speed until we played Leicester. When was that? Late October, mid October. Got a silly sending off. Probably shouldn't have been sent. I bet anyone won't go into that. Then got injured, I think, in between training. Then came back, then struggled, and it's just not worked. And for us to have had any chance of staying up, that signing, he would have had to have been an 8, 9 out of 10 for us and played virtually every game. And he's been nowhere near it really.
Well, thankfully, that's one sign Newcastle avoided because at some point it looked like that was nailed on and it really split the fan base. And it's proved to be one that we've thankfully didn't take up. I think he went to West Ham, didn't he? Yeah. And that
We
didn't work
barely
there
played. This
either.
is it. He went to West Ham and see. He barely. In fairness to the lad, he barely played. And from what I understand, out and about in a local community and stuff, he's a really nice lad. And it's a shame, it just hasn't worked out. Hasn't worked out for him. You'd think, oh, maybe he's one of these big time Charlies sort of thing. He's not really bothered or whatever, picking up his wage. But no, from what I understand about the lad, he's not like that at all. But yeah, shame it just hasn't worked out for him.
And just going back to Liam Delap, because I'm a huge fan. I'm not going to bore our listeners and our viewers with a reminder of what I said last summer. I said they should sign him.
Yeah.
But you mentioned there about him, being a big presence. I mean, just talk to us about the attributes he has. And do you also think Newcastle's issue, if they are interested in him, might be the fact that he wouldn't be guaranteed first team football? Like if Manchester United come knocking, he's
See,
probably
this is another problem, Andrew, we've had with a promoted team. So just put who we signed. So we signed, in the transfer window last summer, we signed other than Somerville, who went to West Ham, who was I think it was Championship Player of the Year last year. We signed three or four of the Championship Team of the Year last year. Like Jack Clark's. Subsequently after that, we signed Jaden Philogene. We signed Jacob Greaves from Hull. And the difference is, Somerville's gone to West Ham, albeit I think he's picked up, perhaps he's had one or two injury issues there. But they can afford to pay £30 million for a player and drip feed him in, if you see what I mean. Where we're paying, 15, 20 million for Jack Clark, Liam Delap. All right, fine. But they've got to play. Amari Hutchison, sorry, 20 million last summer. They're going to play. They've got to play. So this is another advantage which the established clubs have got on the promoted sides. But yeah, Liam Delap, not raw. I'd still say very raw. Not the finish article. Brave, got a turn of pace. Doesn't mind leaving his foot in. Yeah, typical. I would call him typical old school Barnstorming centre forward, which is surprising because last season I know he played pretty much off the right for Hull City when he was there on loan. But yeah, he'll go all the way. These pundits. I mean, some they get it wrong, but they see enough. He's 22, English. He's got the world pretty much got the world at his feet. But as I said, by no means a finished article. Sometimes I think he plays with his head down quite a lot because I think he feels that he has to. Certainly in Albert since Christmas, when he's played, he's had to take it on himself, sort of thing. So I think perhaps his final decision making, but he's still raw. 22 could improve, but yeah, he's got a very very high ceiling, and yeah, he'll go to the very very top. I'm convinced of it. Just yeah, exciting player. It's to see when he gets the ball and runs at defenders and stuff. Well, you've seen some of the goals he's got this season, yeah. And he could look. He hasn't started the last two games. I think he's had a slight rib injury before the Chelsea game, so his bench. George Hurst started, played well, and he was bench again against Arsenal at the weekend. So whether Kieran McKenna is protecting his asset or not, I don't think he is. He's just basically giving her. It's done now, so he's basically giving George Hurst more game time, really.
Do you think it would be a hard sell though if he comes to the table and it's like, well, actually, we've got Alexander Isak, so he's first choice. So do you think that that's still a potential move to Newcastle in the Champions League would
Yeah, I
appeal to
don't
him?
see him. I do. I see that because I don't see him going anywhere. I don't. Well, I don't see him going anywhere in that top six. I know top six. Yeah, I've seen Man United. Okay, I've seen Man United's link with him, but I've also seen Arsenal's link with him. Although Arsenal at the moment aren't playing with a centre forward, and to be fair, Saturday or number 9, if you want to say Sunday, they didn't need one. But no, I certainly would see him going to a champion. He's only 22, like I said, and still, as I said, still learning his trade. Yeah, I can see him going to a Champions League side and playing a bit part for a while. Yeah.
Interesting, because I think the general consensus up here is that he might not want that, but
Well,
that might
do
be
you know what?
good
It
news.
depends. Look, who knows? It really depends. It just depends on so much, doesn't it? I think he's got a bit more. I think he's got a bit more to his bow just than playing that number 9 role. But yeah, yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah, again, if a Brighton, a Brentford, a Fulham, someone like that came in, yeah, you'd think it'd be a guaranteed starter there. So look, Andrew, it just depends who comes in for him. But however, if that 30 million fee is correct, then everyone's going to be all over him, aren't they? Really.
Yeah. Anyone aside from the lap that we should watch out for on Saturday?
Look, it's been. I'd say Amari Hutchinson, but he's missed the last 3. He wasn't fit enough to. He's not even been on the bench. He wasn't fit enough Saturday, so at the weekend. Sorry. So yeah, he's probably been the other standout this season. Real shame that Leif Davis got a straight red, and I hold my hand up. I'd say deservedly straight red on Sunday. He's obviously missing out his big game of the season, coming back to his boyhood. Newcastle. He must be absolutely gutted by that. An issue there is Connor Townsend, our sort of like replacement left back, I think is injured. He wasn't even on the bench Saturday, so that could be interesting. What happens there? Other than that, I think George Hurst, if he does start Saturday, he's been leading the line really well in the last two games, even against Arsenal on Sunday, feeding off scraps. He did really well. Yeah, other than that, Jens Kajusta, we've got on loan from Napoli for the season. I'm sure he won't be in the Championship next season. Yeah, he's got a bit about him, perhaps defensively lacking sometimes, but he's got a little bit about him. But no, I mean, obviously, where he was sacrificed on Sunday, but he'll probably get some stick. But Jack Clark, yeah, I think he's shown a little bit more since Christmas that he was, got a little bit more about him. Again, another one that struggled at first. I think, again, Andrew, I said to you, I'm sure I said this to you before Christmas, the real eye opener for all of us has been just the sheer physicality and the size of these players in the Premier League. Even Saka, Saka's the first time I've seen him up close playing in the flesh, so to speak, on Sunday. He must be 6 foot. I mean, he looks when you see him on TV, he looks quite small and stocky, but he's got to be 6 foot. He's big, honestly. And every single time, this has really caught us out, really, I think.
Well, then you see Dan Burn walking on the pitch or Joe Linton walking on the pitch on Saturday, and you realise
Giants.
they can get even bigger.
But that honestly has been the one thing, and you see them almost every other Saturday, not quite, but they walk out, file, both teams. You look, Christ, they're huge, yeah. I'm sure they're
Certainly
no
going to
bigger.
be.
I'm sure in his stats they're really no bigger than Championship players, but they just seem it probably because they're just better players. To be fair.
Indeed, and I've mentioned a few players there. You've spoken about a couple as well from Newcastle. Is there anyone else that you're particularly fearing from Newcastle, or is it just the team in
Well, I
general?
tell you, tell you who I always have liked, and he's starting to hit his straps now. Is Harvey Barnes, isn't he? Who I
Yeah, he's
always
been
thought
brilliant.
was, yeah, honestly, 2-footed. Always liked Harvey Barnes. So yeah, I mean, I think if you spoke to most Ipswich fans about Saturday's upcoming game, I think we are fearing it, fearing it a bit, And ironically, after that, if you can call it a decent run, a run-in gets easier. I say easier, is it? It's not easy. So I think after that, our last 4 games, we've got Everton away, Brentford at home, Leicester away, and West Ham at home. So it does get slightly easier.
And will the manager kind of be in charge next season? Is that something that's up in the air? Do we know?
Well, he obviously signed a very much tied down to a long-term contract. I think what we did do, the CEO Mark Ashton, we did protect our asset there. You see all sorts. I've seen today that if Postecoglou goes from Spurs, then they could be looking at Mario Silva from Fulham, who may in turn look to McKenna. But I don't see. I mean, this time last summer, we were fearing something like Spurs. I'm not sure Spurs fans would be happy with if let's face almost when, if they don't win this European thing, but I still think is when anyway. If Postecoglou goes and they kind of replace him with Kieran McKenna, manager of a relegated side, I don't think Levy would go for that now. I don't think so. That's my only concern. Our big concern is someone like Silva goes, Thomas Frank goes somewhere. I mean, why would he leave Brentford? Why would anyone leave anywhere for Spurs at the moment? But do you know what I mean? And then we get linked with that. I think it was very close. The closest last summer, and I'm sure we spoke about this before Christmas, was Brighton. Was Brighton, but obviously they made their appointment. That's worked out pretty well for them. So don't see that now. So look, all Ipswich fans would just like him to see it through again, loving to be here. I think next season. Look, in recent weeks there has been some rumblings. I think certainly comes from the pundits who watch Match of the Day and Sky about perhaps him being a bit naive tactically wise and refusing to go away from this 4-2-3-1, particularly at home. So there's certainly been rumblings, and yeah, I've seen it amongst the fan base as well that perhaps he's been a bit perhaps a bit stubborn in his approach. This is my way, this is how I'm going to play. We have slightly gone with a much lower block away from home, more fluid sort of away from home, almost 4-4-2 type thing. But yeah, I think all Ipswich fans would love him to be here and have another crack at the Championship next year, and hopefully we're going down in a fairly decent, strong position financially wise, anyway.
Does it make it slightly more difficult though to kind of finish in a blaze of glory, so to speak? Because I spoke to the Leicester reporter when Newcastle faced Leicester a few games back about how Ruud van Nistelrooy most likely wouldn't be in charge next season, and often when some of these sides go down, that the manager is going to remain in charge, so it's a lot easier to get the message across. I.e., if you want to be part of the journey next season to get us back here, then go and play your heart out for the final 3 or 4 games. But I guess if we don't know whether he's going to be here, is that
Oh,
is that a little bit more difficult to get them
No,
to get them
I
up to
think
speed?
no, and it's a good point. No, I mean it's always going to be speculation about McKenna. He's a bright young coach that has got a CV. I think his CV has got a decent CV. I think his CV's certainly taken a bit of a battering this season. But again, you just have to put it into context. I would be very surprised if he's not here at the start of the season. Really, it's not like the Van Nistelrooy situation at all, really. Because yeah, obviously he'll go, but no, you'd like to think we've got 21 points. I think as a fan base, we'd like to think, with these remaining games, looking at the last two, Leicester away, West Ham at home, that if we can pick up a few points there, at least get us to like the mid-20s, at least give us a bit of a buffer between at least 18th and 19th sort of thing.
Mm. You mentioned there the low block that it sounds like you're anticipating on Saturday. Just explain a little bit more about the approach, please.
Yeah, well, I don't think we'll play. I mean, again, it depends on personnel. It really depends on personnel. Saturday, we've been chopping and changing recently with Cameron Burgess, who was our left side centre back, right from League One right the way through, who I didn't think would adapt to the Premier League at all. But to be fair, has done as well as any, and he's been alternating pretty much with Jacob Greaves. It might be interesting to see what happens on Saturday because, as I said, we don't think at the moment we've got a recognised left back. Um, yeah, it's a kind of a hybrid thing, whether sort of two in midfield, perhaps the two central midfield, perhaps you get either one of the three, either whoever plays right or plays left, dropping back into there. So yeah, I think it does definitely become a more of a obvious low block away from home than at home.
There we go. One to watch then. Before I get your score prediction, just a reminder that this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Do hit the link in your podcast description box for an exclusive offer on your plan. Prices start from just over £2, and you can share that amongst 10 devices to keep yourself safe and support the podcast at the same time. Come on then, Dave. How's this one going to go?
Oh, mate. Do you know what? I'd say score a goal because we score some goals away from home. Scored two at Chelsea the other week. 3-1. I'd take a 3-1 now. Seriously.
I said 4-1. I think you will get on the score sheet, but then I can see Newcastle United just getting stronger. I think you probably might even get the first goal of truth be told, and then that
Wow.
that,
Yeah.
that you said at the start about 27, 28 points being thrown away from winning positions will ring true, and it'll become 30 or 31, whatever the stat is. So I think you might open
Well,
the scoring. A
just
bit nervous for 20 minutes, but then Newcastle will push on through.
I'd say that just quickly. The last time we played, because we do a little flashback rewind show you can find online. It went out last night. Of last time we played Newcastle in the Premier League, and then we focus on a Premier League game of seasons before. And the last time it was a 2-2 draw, and Alan Shearer in like the 90th minute took the worst. It must have been the worst penalty of his career. And sort of dragged it wide, and it ended up a 2-2 draw. I'd like to think we could we could have some of that luck this weekend, but I just can't. I just can't see it, unfortunately. It was quite funny. There's a brilliant comment from Bobby Robson afterwards saying, "I've just lost my house." He said, I bet my house on Shearer scoring the winning penalty, and I'm now homeless."
Who was in goal that day? Was it Richard Wright? Was it for
Oh,
Ipswich or
that
what?
day. No, 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 no. That would have been Matteo Serini, I think, that day. I
I've
think,
just
yeah.
found the team, and yeah, you're spot on actually, Matteo Serini. Yeah, so there you
Yeah,
go.
Matteo Serini. I think Mark. Oh, well, I just covered it the weekend. Marcus Bent scored the much travelled Marcus Bent scored a couple for us that day.
Yes, very rare he scored that many goals in a game. I would imagine good old Marcus Bent. But there you have
Oh,
it.
he had a great run
Well,
that season. He had a great run
did
that
he?
season. Yeah, he did. Laurent Bear scored a ridiculous free kick. Although I think if you look back at that game, the free kick he takes, it's one of those ones where he just chips it over the wall and it just almost floats in the far corner. I'm not sure our keeper covers himself in much glory there, to be fair, but it's a class goal.
He had a history of scoring wonderful free kicks to Laurent Robert. It was kind of what he did. He couldn't half strike a ball. We'd certainly take one of those from maybe Fabian Schär or
No, no,
anyone else on Saturday.
yeah, yeah.
But
I'll keep up. To be fair, that's probably famous last words now. But we had trouble with our keepers all season. We signed Aro Muric from Burnley. That yeah, it just didn't work out. A couple of high profile sort of clangers. But in the transfer window in January, we signed Alex Palmer from West Brom, and he's been up to now. Caveat, touchwood. He's been really good. So yeah, perhaps look out for him. Hopefully he's not too busy, but I fear he may have quite a bit to do on Saturday.
well, at least he'll get relegated with that. How shall we say that medal around his neck of being the keeper that conceded that indirect free kick in the box, right?
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that was the one clanger. That was the one where he obviously you saw what led up to it, the back pass, and he's sort of looking where should I play it and forgets about the ball. That was a hell of a save actually. To keep that out actually was a hell of a save. But yeah, I think that will be on. Well, if Question of Sport was still on there, what happened next? Was an absolute classic. You don't see that much these days, do you?
No, much a rarity. But Dave, thank you very much for popping on. I wish you well and hopefully a swift return to the Premier League. And are you coming up on Saturday? Or are you giving it a miss?
I can't. I can't come up. Unfortunately, I can't come up Saturday. I've been a few away this season, but no, I can't make it this Saturday. I had to say if there was something a bit more on the game, maybe, but no, I couldn't make it this Saturday anyway. But no, a few pals that are going, looking forward to the experience. Obviously, knowing where the away supporters stand, taking their away binoculars and telescopes with them. I think to see the play. But yeah, looking forward to it because yeah, I think I said to you before. I've had one or two sort of nights out and weekends up in Newcastle over the years, and fantastic place.
Yeah, it's a great place to visit as an away fan. So safe journey if you're an Ipswich Town fan and stumbled across the pod and are heading up to St James's Park. Thank you again to Dave for popping on and providing the insight into Ipswich. Thank you to you guys for watching and listening. Head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the build up to that game. And then we've got a dedicated match day live blog as well. And from myself, I will see you guys very soon.